Hey guys, it's Lance at Mac Sound Solutions. Long time no see. I know it's been a while since I made my last video, but I've been working like a dog. I just have not had time to make a new video. But today's video is going to be installing OpenCore Legacy Patcher and Sonoma on my Mac Pro 5,1. As you know, I upgraded to a Mac Pro 7,1, which is my main work computer now. I'm still running Monterey on this, but on the Mac Pro 5,1, I thought I'd experiment because people have been asking me to make this video, so why not give it a try, right? And along with that, I'm going to be using an app by today's sponsor, which is DQ Upgrade, which is called iTechGuy. And basically, iTechGuy is an app you can download from the App Store, and you can ask it questions like ChatGPT. But it also pulls information from other places on the web, like Mac Rumors and Reddit, and it compiles all the information and tries to give you the best possible tech support answer you can get so that you don't have to go searching forums to get an answer to a question like, what GPU can I use with Sonoma in my Mac Pro 5,1? So you can download the app at the App Store and you get 30 free questions. DQ Upgrade also gave me a Steam Deck, which we gave away on my last video to one lucky subscriber, and the winner was Thomas Wilbur. Let's hear a word from Thomas.
Hey everyone, my name is Thomas. I was the one that won the Steam Deck from Lance, Mac Sound Solutions. It was given to him by DQ Upgrade. They're an eBay seller and a company that sells parts for your Mac Pro 4,1 and Mac Pro 5,1. So as you can see, I've got it right here. I got some games loaded on here. I really like it. It runs Arch Linux and SteamOS. There's a ton of things you can do with this. I mean, I looked online, you can put Windows on here. I don't know why you would, but yeah, it's really powerful. So as you can see here, I got my Mac Pro set up. So I followed most of his guides. Again, thanks to Mac Sound Solutions for the Steam Deck and for providing great guides and instructions on how to do everything. And also thanks to DQ Upgrade. Basically they have everything you need for these computers, which is awesome.
Okay, and at the end of this video, I will be giving details on how to win another Steam Deck. But this time it's going to be the new Oled SteamDeck, a 512 gig model. So make it to the end of the video to get the details on how to possibly win the Steam Deck. All right. Let's get to the install. And before you go to do the install, you really need to know what GPU you should be using. So we typed in our prompt and it's giving us a list of GPUs that are compatible with OpenCore Legacy Patcher and Sonoma when running it in a Mac Pro 5,1. And obviously the RX 580 is at the top of the list there. That is a good choice. You can also use a 560, a 570, a Vega 56, Vega 64, and you can also use a WX 7100. And the one it doesn't list on here is the Radeon 7, which is currently the most powerful GPU you can use with a Mac Pro 5,1 and Sonoma. Now, some of these GPUs, which is noted here, is that they are compatible, but you will need to do a power mod to be able to use them. They require more power than the Mac Pro can give from the logic board. So you'll have to do the PIXLAS mod for the Radeon 56, 64, and the Radeon 7. But the 580 that I'm using today does not need any power modification. It runs off the internal power. And you can still get them new on Amazon, and here is also the power cable that you will need. I left the link to both of these in the video description. One thing to be aware of when you buy a used GPU on eBay, you don't know if the previous owner has modified the ROM. They might have used it for Bitcoin mining. They might have patched the ROM to try and get better performance. You really need it to be the stock ROM before doing the install process. So if you are buying a used GPU, I recommend you ask the seller, is it stock? Because if the ROM's been modified, you're going to have all kinds of problems doing the install. You could even ask them to flash the original ROM back to the card before shipping it to you. And I had this exact issue. I had a RX 580 that I got used on eBay, and it did not have the original ROM. I was getting weird colors out of my DVI output. My display ports weren't working. The only thing that did work was the HDMI, but also Enable GOP was not working. I could not get the Mac boot screen. That's how I found out. I was trying to turn SIP off on the Mac Pro, and I couldn't do it because I wasn't getting my boot screen, and I couldn't boot into recovery mode. So I had to put it in my Mac Pro 7.1, run Windows, reflash the GPU with the original ROM, and then all was good. My display ports were working, my DVI port was normal, and I got the boot screen with Enable GOP. And the app is a work in process. It is not completely finalized. It's still gathering information. It didn't list any of the NVIDIA cards that you can use, some of the Kepler cards, but you're really better off with AMD anyway. The NVIDIA cards and the AMD cards here on the official list from OpenCore Legacy Patcher are the ones that will work with Sonoma in a Mac Pro 5.1. And for those who are wondering, AMD Navi 23 and Navi 21 GPUs, the RX 6600 XT, 6800 XT, and 6900 XT, are not compatible with Ventura or Sonoma in the Mac Pro 5.1. You can use them in a Mac Pro 7.1, but they will not work due to the lack of AVX2 instructions in the Xeon processors in the Mac Pro 5.1. Currently, they only work in Monterey, and perhaps in the future, OpenCore Legacy Patcher developers will figure out a way to get them to work in Ventura and Sonoma, but that is yet to be seen. So first, you have to have Mojave already installed on your Mac Pro. I am not going to go through all of that to get you there, and if you have a 4.1, you got to get it up to a 5.1 first, and then install Mojave. I have videos on how to do this stuff, but today is just trying to get from Mojave to Sonoma, which is a giant leap forward. So let's give iTechGuy a whirl here, and we're going to ask it what boot ROM version should the Mac Pro have when it's running Mojave. And there you go, it gave us the correct answer. The boot ROM version should be 144.0.0.0.0. And the app also tells you how to get to Mojave and that boot ROM version if you're not there already. Impressive. So there's two ways to go about the whole GPU part of this install. Either you got to have your original Apple GPU that came with your Mac Pro, like a GT120 or one of the early AMD cards that gives you the Apple boot screen in Mojave. So I asked our AI helper app, iTechGuy, what GPUs originally shipped with the Mac Pro 4.1 and 5.1. And it gave us a list. The first one, NVIDIA GeForce GT120. That was the base GPU you could get with the Mac Pro back in the day. And the other most common ones are the Radeon 4870, the 5770, and the 5870. All of those will give you the needed Apple boot screen. Or you can install Enable GOP, which I highly recommend doing. I have a video on that, and that will give you the Apple boot screen with almost any GPU in existence that works in your Mac Pro 5.1, like the RX 580. So I didn't have to put in my old GPU. I was able to use the RX 580, get the Apple boot screen, boot into recovery mode, which is the first step of this install that you will have to do. So you're either going to have to use your old GPU and then switch to the new GPU after you get OpenCore Legacy Patcher installed, or if you have enabled GOP, you can start with the 580 right off the bat because you're getting the Apple boot screen, which enables you to boot into recovery mode because you need to turn off SIP if it is turned on. Now, after doing a lot of reading up, I have found that you can actually install OpenCore Legacy Patcher with a non-Mac GPU, like an RX 580 that is not flash for Mac. And you can also manually disable SIP using OpenCore Legacy Patcher. But both of these things are more complex, and I'm going to stick to your basic installation here. But if you need to go that route, it is explained on the OpenCore Legacy Patcher site. Now before we install OpenCore, we should do a full PRAM reset on the Mac Pro. This is highly recommended to clean out the cobwebs of your boot ROM. If you have a rebuilt boot ROM with enabled GOP, you do not need to do this. But if you haven't done that, and you haven't done this in a long time, it's highly advised to do the PRAM reset. And this needs to be done before disabling SIP, because doing a PRAM reset will re-enable SIP. So you have to do this first, then the next step is to disable SIP. So let's ask iTechGuy, how do we do a PRAM reset on a Mac Pro 5,1? And it came up with the right answer. Basically, you shut down your Mac, you hold down the Command Option P and R keys right after you hit the power button. So you got to use a wired keyboard for this. Hit the power button, hold down the Command Option P and R keys, and let the boot chime happen multiple times. So it will take a while after that first boot chime to get to the second one, the third one, and possibly even a fourth one. So just keep holding those keys, let the Mac Pro do its thing, and you'll hear 4 boot chimes. If you only get 3 out of it, that's probably good enough. So that is what's called a deep PRAM reset, and it's a good idea to do this before installing OpenCore. Now we need to disable SIP. So we're going to ask our iTechGuy app, how do we turn off SIP on a Mac Pro 5,1? And it says restart your Mac holding down the Command and R key immediately after you hear the startup chime. This will boot you into recovery mode. Then we open the terminal app, which is in the upper menu bar under Utilities. Then we want to disable SIP. We type in the command CSR util disable and hit enter. And then we will get a message that says SIP has been disabled. And now we can reboot back into Mojave. And now once we're rebooted, we should go to the OpenCore Legacy Patcher website and download the OpenCore Legacy Patcher app. So we're at the What is OpenCore, How do I get started page, and we click on Download and Build Mac OS Installer. And of course they have all the instructions here that you need to install OpenCore Legacy Patcher. And the current version is 1.5.0. So you scroll down and we click on OpenCore Patcher GUI.app. That is the one you want. So I'm going to download it to my desktop. Most of the time it'd probably go to your downloads folder, and then we will find it after we download it, unzip it, and then move the app into the applications folder. So it's decompressing, and there is the app. OpenCore Patcher app. We're going to move that into our applications folder. And then I'm going to go find it in the applications folder, and I'm going to drag it into my dock. So I have quick access to the app. And we're going to launch it for the first time. And of course, we're going to get Apple's system security bugging us to say this is not a verified Apple developer. So we got to go in there, say that it's okay to open the app. And you just go into System Security and Privacy on the General tab, type in your administrative password, and then from there on out you should be able to open the app. We type in our password, and it's launching and installing additional components. And what this does is actually moves the application into your system and then puts an alias in the applications folder. So the app has now turned into an alias. As you can see down here, there it is. And it's got that little arrow on the icon showing you that it's an alias, which is a little file that points to another file. And the actual app has been moved to Library, Application Support, D'Artagnan, OpenCore Legacy Patcher app. So it's now in your library, and because the app has now been moved, it's no longer in your dock. So there's really no point in putting it in your dock in the first place like I did. You can just leave it in the applications folder and the app will be replaced by the alias. But if you do want to have quick access to the app in your dock, take the alias and drag it down next to the trash can where you can open files in your dock. And that'll give you quick access to be able to launch OpenCore Legacy Patcher from your dock. Okay, so now we need a USB thumb drive, at least 16 gigs, probably formatted in exFAT. It's going to wipe it clean and reformat it in this process, so don't have any files on there that you want. Back those up somewhere else. So before moving forward, two things I have to say. I highly recommend using Ethernet, not your Wi-Fi. You have to download the whole Mac OS installer next, and it's going to take a really long time if you do it over Wi-Fi. But aside from that, if you get into problems with Wi-Fi on the initial install of Sonoma, you may no longer have an internet connection. So if you can connect your Mac Pro to your router with Ethernet and use that for your internet as opposed to Wi-Fi, I highly recommend it. Secondly, you need a wired keyboard and mouse. You cannot use Bluetooth with this install because, again, Bluetooth will stop working. And also USB 1.1 or whatever it is, the very old USB, the original keyboard that came with your Mac Pro, the big clunky one, that will also not work. You have to use a USB hub 2.0 or greater with a wired keyboard and mouse. You can use the old keyboard and mouse, but it has to be connected to a hub first going into the USB port because USB 1 isn't supported until it's patched. It will work later after the whole install is done, but it will not work initially and you'll be stuck with no keyboard and mouse if you're not connected with a hub. Now that being said, I use this keyboard, which is Apple's later expanded keyboard, which I believe is USB 2.0. So it worked fine, and it also has sort of a built-in hub because you can plug your mouse into it. So I was able to use this keyboard and mouse combination and not have a hub, and it worked just fine. Another note is it's best to start with no PCIe cards in your Mac Pro when you're doing this install aside from your GPU. And don't have any external hard drives connected or peripherals. It's basically best to keep it a bare bones setup when you're doing the install. Another note is you need to have a second hard drive to install Sonoma on. So you either want to put a drive in SATA Bay 2, another SSD, have Mojave in SATA Bay 1, your target drive for Sonoma in SATA Bay 2 formatted in APFS, which you can do with Mojave. Sonoma will probably reformat it anyway. You don't want to use a drive with any data on it. You want it to be a brand new drive formatted in APFS. Okay, now we're going to go to OpenCore Legacy Patcher next to our trash can. We're going to launch it. It's going to launch the GUI, the app, and we're going to hit Create Mac OS Installer and then click on Download Mac OS Installer. And of course, if you're downloading it over Wi-Fi, it's going to take a lot longer. So if you can connect via Ethernet, that's the way to go. We're going to click Download Sonoma because that is the OS we're installing today. And I have already downloaded the installer, so I'm just going to jump to Use Existing Installer instead. But it's the same process. So now we're going to click on Install Mac OS Sonoma. And currently, the downloaded OS is in your applications folder. It's not on your thumb drive yet. So the next step here is to select the disk you want to put the installer on to do the install. And you want to put it on the thumb drive. So there you can see my Patriot 63 gig thumb drive. And are you sure you want to erase it? It's going to reformat it and create the OpenCore Legacy Patcher version of the Mac OS Sonoma installer. And we successfully created the Mac OS installer. And I'm just going to open it up real quick to show you that, yes, in fact, we have Sonoma on our thumb drive. There it is, 13 gigs. Now we're going to install OpenCore to this disk. So we click on Yes. So it finished building the OpenCore configuration, and you can see below it says Mac Pro 5,1. So it automatically knows what Mac you're using. Then we click Install to Disk, So now we are going to select disk to install OpenCore onto, and right now it's selected on my Mojave drive. I don't want to put it there. I'm going to put it on the USB thumb drive that we have the Sonoma installer on. So we select the Patriot USB thumb drive, and it says volumes on disk. We're going to be putting it on the EFI, which is a hidden partition on every hard drive, and we're putting it on the EFI of the USB thumb drive for now. So now we're going to either reboot or shut down our Mac, but we got to talk about this first. So if you were using the original Mac Pro GPU up until this point, it's time to shut down the computer instead of rebooting, and remove it and put in whatever you're going to be using going forward, whether it's your 580 or whatever the graphics card is going to be. So shut down, remove the old graphics card, put the new graphics card in, and if you were already using a 580 because it was flashed or you had Enable GOP installed, you can just hit the reboot button and continue with the install. So we're continuing where we left off here. Reboot to apply. OpenCore has finished installing to disk. You will need to reboot and hold the Option key and select OpenCore Boot EFI option. Would you like to reboot? So as I said before, you're either going to shut down and swap out your graphics card at this point, or you're going to just reboot. And once you do, whether you're starting up from a cold boot or you're rebooting, you must hold down the Option key. And then this is what you will see after the computer boots. And you will now see the OpenCore bootloader for the first time. And we need to select EFI Boot. We do not want to select Mojave. So we select it and hit Enter or click on it. And now we click on Install Mac Os Sonoma. And now we're going to pick the drive that we want to install Sonoma on. I have prepped a second drive called Macintosh HD, and I am installing Sonoma on the second drive. Don't get it confused with your Mojave drive, because you do not want to erase your Mojave drive, and it will erase it if you select it. And at this point, you just follow the directions. The Mac is going to reboot itself several times, probably 3 to 4 times to do the full install, and that's totally normal. And it might look like the progress bar gets stuck. Don't worry about it. Let it sit there until it moves forward, because sometimes it just looks like it's stuck. If it's stuck for an hour, then there's something wrong. But otherwise, the Mac will reboot. It's going to select the installer the first couple of times, and then it's going to select the hard drive that it installed the install on, and it'll finish the install. You now have OpenCore installed, and you have Sonoma installed. So now that we're done installing Sonoma, OpenCore Legacy Patcher is probably going to pop up and say, hey, do you want to move OpenCore to a new location? In other words, to get it off your thumb drive. Because the reality is you don't really want to have a thumb drive plugged into your computer all the time and rely on that place for OpenCore to be. So we're going to move OpenCore, we're going to rebuild it, we're going to reinstall it onto the internal hard drive. But if you put your OS on an NVMe, don't put OpenCore on the NVMe. It's not really recommended. It's best to have it in one of the SATA bays. It does not have to be the system drive. OpenCore can live on any drive, but in my case, I'm just going to install it on the same drive that I have Sonoma. So the EFI on the Sonoma drive will have OpenCore installed on it. And then we're going to have to boot up again, holding down the Option key and select EFI again. Just like we did earlier, because this reblesses OpenCore so the computer knows where it's now located. And once OpenCore has been successfully reblessed and moved to the new location, the USB drive is no longer needed, so we can eject it. And another note is that once you have OpenCore installed and Sonoma, you will no longer be able to boot into Mojave. You will just get the cannot boot sign if you try to boot into Mojave. But all you got to do is pull out the OpenCore drive. That's why we don't put OpenCore on the Mojave drive, because OpenCore Legacy Patcher no longer supports booting into Mojave. So now we're going to look at post-install root patches. And normally you would always have to install root patches after you installed OpenCore, but now with this latest version, it seems like it does it for you during the process of making the copy of the OS installer. So it actually patches the installer as you're copying it to the USB thumb drive. As you can see above, it says all applicable patches already installed. So I don't have to run the post-install patches. It's already been done. But I'm going to do it anyway. On my Mac Pro 6,1, I had to do this process. It was not pre-installed for me. So here it is, doing the post root patching again. So basically I moved OpenCore to my Sonoma drive, and now I'm doing the root patches again, which I don't need to do, but I'm just showing you the process. And you will need to do the post-root patching if you swapped your GPU after installing OpenCore Legacy Patcher. So now we have to reboot, and you can see that the root patches put in graphics, AMD Legacy Polaris, networking, modern wireless, and miscellaneous Legacy USB 1.1. So now the old USB keyboard will work once again now that it's been patched. So now it's time to talk about Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and I know this video has been painfully long. It was painful to make, but we're getting to the end here, folks, and we're going to also tell you how to win that Steam Deck, that nice OLED 512 gig Steam Deck. So long story short, after installing Sonoma, my Bluetooth stopped working. My Wi-Fi worked, but Bluetooth did not. And I have an upgraded Wi-Fi Bluetooth card. Check out my video on that, on how to do that. And it worked fine in Monterey with Martin Lowe's OpenCore package, but Bluetooth stopped working after this install, and it took me quite a lot of time to figure out how to fix it. Days, actually. And thanks to another user on the Facebook forums, I was able to figure this out. So you have to download OpenCore Configurator. I'll put the link in the description, and you can see that after scanning my PIXLAS files, there is a file called Bluetooth Spoof.kext, and that is the criminal. That is the one that probably gets your legacy Bluetooth card working, but it disrupts a newer card from working. So once I got that turned off, you can see I have it unchecked over on the right there. You got to stretch this window out to see the enabled kext files. So that is KEXT. And Bluetooth Spoof was the one that was blocking my Bluetooth card from working. In fact, it changed the name of the card to something different, and it just didn't work. So once I got that turned off, you have to save this config, and all was good after that. Bluetooth is working, Wi-Fi is working, the computer's running really well so far. I haven't had a ton of time to try apps and work with it because I work on my 7,1. I don't work on the 5.1 anymore. It's an experiment. So as I said before, if your 5,1 is a production work computer, don't install Sonoma on it. Stick with Martin Lowe's OpenCore package in Monterey or OpenCore Legacy Patcher in Monterey, and it's just a safer bet because this OS is really designed for Apple Silicon and ladder computers that at least handle AVX2 instructions. So you're going to get cut out of certain functionality with Sonoma and Ventura because of AVX2. So as promised, to have a chance at winning the OLED SteamDeck 512 gig model, you need to leave a positive review on the Apple App Store under the iTechGuy review section, or you can leave a positive review on your social media account, but be sure to include a link to the app on the App Store. So you either leave a review on the App Store or you do it on your social media with a link to the app on the App Store, and you take a screenshot of either one of those and email it to me so I have your email to contact you, and we will pick one lucky winner within 30 days of posting this video. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, and thanks to DQ Upgrade for sponsoring this video and giving us another Steam Deck to give away to one lucky subscriber. So stay tuned, we'll be announcing that soon. Later.